Welcome to Booze and Bourbon, a podcast where we talk about all things paranormal, and bourbon too. Now, here are your two ghostess hostesses with the mostest, Kim and Jen. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Booze and Bourbon. I am Kim, and over there is the lovely Jennifer Taylor.
Oh, that was me yelling from my high, I don't even know what I was going to say. Upstairs. That's what I meant. Upstairs. From my high seat. I don't know what I was trying to say there.
I was going to, like, your high watchtower?
Yeah,
maybe?
The watchtower. I'm in the watchtower of my street. Yep.
Excellent. Well, you do have a prime view there at the end of the cul-de-sac.
Yeah, sure do.
Oh my gosh. So how are you?
I'm very much in need of bourbon actually today because of the weather and because of the shoveling that took place today. So the bourbon, the warmth of the bourbon is really what I'm going for right now.
Okay.
And yourself?
Oh, well, I'm looking forward to having a sip. Yes, it was a very snowy day today. Snowy, windy, rainy. I experienced some time without power, which is always very frustrating because I was very hungry and I'm like, what am I going to have for lunch? And I'm afraid to open up the fridge door and, all of those things. So anyways, I am here. I survived.
Well, we are all very glad that you did.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you.
Can I also just say, while you just said that and talking about your power, my light just flickered, and I'm going to hope it is Robert and Sharon, my host ghosts, and not that I'm losing power, because that would suck as well. So continue on. Time's
got to be tough when you're saying, I hope it's my ghost instead of the power going out.
Exactly, right? It's totally fine now. We're all okay. We're all friends. We don't care anymore. We're just okay.
One big happy family living under one big roof.
Yep.
Lovely. So besides that, Jen, we had a pretty cool week. We were on one of our friends' podcasts. We did a Facebook Live on the Mystery Collection with Paul. Mm-hmm. And that was fun. But guess what?
What?
It got taken down off of Facebook today.
What? Why?
It was because of your nip slip, I think.
God damn it. That should be appreciated and accepted by all.
No, guys, if you did not catch the Facebook Live, I think there were just a lot of explicit words towards the end, towards one specific person whom Jen and I didn't know, but that's okay.
Oh.
It's okay.
Right.
It was a magnificent masterpiece that like a lot of people saw, but a lot of people didn't see. So I guess we're kind of just like ghosts. Like people see them and then there's like no evidence.
True.
The choice of whiskey today is a little bit different. This one actually comes from Nova Scotia. It is a single malt whiskey. It's a Canadian whiskey, but it cannot be called Scotch. Therefore, it is called a single malt Canadian whiskey. Not to be confused with a rye. It is very different. There was a big lawsuit that happened with Glenora Distillery, who makes Glen Breton, when they first came out, saying that Glen, they weren't allowed putting in their name, but they're like, hey, it's in our village because we are New Scotland. So we have places that are named similar things like Glen. So anyway, turns out they won in their court battle where they could continue to use Glen in their Glen Breton name. But what's really cool about this is they actually finish their whiskey in bourbon barrels, ex-bourbon barrels. So this one specifically is the 10-year, and I'm just going to take a little sniff here. I'm definitely getting a lot of vanilla and cherry, which is nice. Jen, I'm raising a virtual cheers to you.
Thank you.
Are you sipping on bourbon?
Yes. Now I need some more.
Yeah. Fill up your cup. Sounds like you need it.
Yeah.
So what else can I tell you about this? There's a lot of oakiness and some smokiness and some earthiness, but there's definitely a lot of like hazelnut, toffee, caramel, chocolatey kind of flavors in there, which I think is because of the bourbon casks. Mm-hmm. I definitely like it. It's probably one of my more favorite Scotch-esques I really don't like that many scotches, and this one technically can't be a scotch. But anyway, without any further ado, if you're in Nova Scotia, go get some. It's definitely at all your liquor stores.
Yeah.
And Jen, it's about that time, I think.
It is. It
For
is.
one of our favorite little games or both of our favorite little game?
Both.
Okay. Do you want to go first?
Yes. Yes, I do. Now, this is going with today's topic and also going with one that we will cover as well at some point, but also because I'm going to call it my homeland, even though I wasn't born there, but Dad's homeland, maybe.
Okay.
So, would you rather spend the night in one of Ireland's most haunted castles alone?
Yes. Yes.
With said banshee, I'm not sure which one, but one of their banshees, we'll say. Or would you rather spend the night in one of Scotland's most haunted homes by yourself? Not a castle, a very brilliant looking home, but to have many ghosts looming around.
I'm going to have to go with Ireland. I do want to go to both places. I have not been to Ireland or Scotland.
Okay.
I'm going to have to go with Ireland because I feel like you talked up a really great story about how haunted Ireland was and their haunted castles.
Well, and I mean, the castles are very large and open, so I feel like you'd have more space to roam, whereas the home in Scotland might not be as large. So,
right. Yeah.
Good choice. Good choice.
Let's see if you can talk a good game for Scotland as well and make us all creeped out about Scotland. Okay, so Jen, would you rather spend a day riding along the back of the Loch Ness Monster or spend a day holding hands walking through fairyland with a wood nymph?
Well, I mean, I'd be dry with the fairy, but the Loch Ness reminds me of like a brontosaurus in the water, and my love of dinosaurs really exceeds the fairy, so I'm just going to have to bear back the old Nessie.
I love it. I am so glad you chose that option.
Just frolicking in the water, you know?
I can picture it. I can definitely see it now. Yeah.
Great.
Oh, boy. Okay. So now that that's out of the way, let's just face it that Scotland definitely has its fair share of like haunted and odd things, but people tend to talk more about the cryptid sea creature, like I mentioned, the Loch Ness Monster living in Loch Ness. So a lot of people have actually glazed over the real spookiness and the real hauntings of Scotland. People give Ireland a lot of credit for having haunted castles and ghosts dating back to the year 400, but there are thousands of Scottish ghost stories. It feels like this was especially important to us, especially Jen, that these ghosts were covered because there's such a close connection to our home province of Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia means New Scotland, and it's because Sir William Alexander received a grant to all of the land between New England and Newfoundland from King James VI of Scotland, also known as King James I of England, back in 1621. And the official charter for this was written in Latin, and the name New Scotland retained its Latin form, Nova Scotia. And another interesting note is that Nova Scotia has the largest Gaelic-speaking community in the world outside of Scotland. So it just made sense for us to talk about them, as in the ghosts and the hauntings. So let's get each other creeped out, shall we?
Absolutely. Right after this brief and short break. Welcome back, everybody. So let's dive right in here, shall we? Spirits can be found in many locations throughout Scotland. with most towns and villages having some kind of ghost story which has been passed down from generation to generation through written and oral tradition. Some of these stories are related to some very old places, so it's super creepy to think that these ghosts have been around for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. When I came across these stories, there were a few that just got me. Here's the first one. I'll let you decide whether or not this is creepy. This is the Headless Horseman of the House of Dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Good one, Kim. This grand Georgian house in Montrose and its surrounding estate hold many a dark secret, including that of a headless horseman who stalks the lanes of Dun at night. There is also the tale of the harpist murdered in the den of Dun. This is like a tongue twister. Where to this day, on the very spot he was murdered, the ghost has been spotted playing musical laments. You may also encounter the phantom of the night who, upon returning from the Crusades, discovered his wife had been tricked into marrying his friend. A sword fight ensued, and the man was run through and impaled on an ancient yew tree.
That doesn't sound pleasant, Jen.
No.
Okay, so next we have the ghosts of the Alloa Tower. Scotland's oldest keep, which has stood in Clackmanshire for 700 years, has seen more than a few bloody episodes, as such is home to a multitude of ghosts. The ghost of a man in chains, being helped by a serving girl, has been seen in the dungeon, while a young girl and woman dressed in black, watching over a cradle, have been seen in the Great Hall. Is there still a dungeon? Like, if there's still a dungeon, why are people even going down there? I mean,
I know.
I can't imagine it being like the wine cellar of the house, being like, oh yeah, Jen, will you just go grab that bottle of wine from the dungeon?
Yeah, sounds really nice.
Okay, anyway, sorry, that thought just popped in my head. Mm-hmm. So also, a maid has been spotted pacing up and down in front of a painting of the tower and its adjoining mansion. And that mansion was burned to the ground in August of 1800, and on the anniversary of the fire, visitors report the smell of burning. They are not the only hauntings, and some of the other spirits are actually quite terrifying, from the crying boy to the armed man with strange eyes, and a hanging man swinging from a beam in the solar room.
It's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Yes. So, onto the ghost in the bath.
I love baths.
Me too. Blythewood Square in Glasgow was the place to live in the 1800s, but when Captain Smythe moved into his new res, he took a dislike to the bathroom, finding it dark and sinister. One night, just as he was about to enter the tub, he saw the apparition of a beautiful woman strangle someone in the bath. Uh-huh. Weeks later, his son saw the bloated body of an old man in the water. The Smythes swiftly moved out, only to discover the former residents were a wealthy old man who had been found dead in the bath and his beautiful young Spanish wife who inherited his fortune and was never seen again. Interesting.
That's suspicious. Mm-hmm. That's weird. Okay. I don't know why I find this so funny. I'm sorry. Okay.
It's okay.
So then we have Crath's Castle in Banchory, and it's home to many spooky tales, including the Green Lady, named after the spirit of a young woman who has often been seen by the fireplace wearing a green dress and cradling an infant in her arms. She even has a room named after her, and when, in the 1800s, the castle was renovated, the bones of a child, presumed murdered, were discovered underneath the hearthstone of the fireplace. I said plaiths. Fireplace.
Oh, dear.
Oh, shit. Okay. The archives tell of the unearthly appearance of a luminous block of ice that moves like someone walking, but is not human in shape, and these visions are always accompanied by a sharp drop in the room temperature. The Tower House is also home to the White Lady, thought to be Alexander Burnet's young lover, Bertha. Poisoned by Lady Agnes for being unworthy of her son's hand in marriage, Bertha visits on the anniversary of her murder.
Wow, Mom did not like you, so she took you out.
No. Yeah.
Wowzers. All right. The Witches of Pollock House. The sprawling mansion and surrounding country park has been a favourite of Glaswegians for decades and has often been described Scotland's downtown abbey, but it's a property linked to one of Glasgow's stranger episodes in Glasgow's witch hunts. A mute servant girl, Janet Douglas, accused 5 people of poisoning the laird of the estate, Sir George Maxwell. Aided by Douglas Maxwell, a known witch hunter, made a miraculous recovery. 4 of the 5 were sentenced to death. The girl was then reputed to have traveled to America and was involved in the infamous Salem witch trials of 1692.
Oh, that's crazy.
Interesting.
Yeah, I like it. Okay, so I'm going to get into a bit of a longer story, and this one is called A Night of Terror with the Grey Paw. Victorian folklorist John Gregerson Campbell traveled to Scotland in the 1850s and 1860s, collecting a wealth of stories of superstition, second sight, and supernatural occurrences. Many were published in the 1900 The Epic Superstitions of the Highlands and the Islands of Scotland. He kind of sounds like Helen Creighton a bit. The spooky yarn, best told by candlelight, begins way up in the Highlands at the big church of Bewley, where locals had reported unearthly sights and sounds after dark. It was said that those who went to investigate the mysterious goings-on never returned alive. One day, a courageous Taylor laid a wager, and he would spend an entire night inside the haunted church where he would sew a pair of socks. Things went swimmingly until the dead hour of midnight when a big ghastly head emerged from a tomb, and the fearsome figure spoke in Gaelic. I am not going to try to pronounce that. I can't even. So it equates to, look at the old gray cow that is without food, Taylor. I see that, and I sew this, the tailor replied, hurriedly continuing his work. But with every breath the tailor took, the fleshless spectre emerged further into the tomb. As each new body part appeared, the ghoul repeated its mantra. A long grizzled weasand was followed by long grey arm and a long crooked shank. And terrified, the tailor attempted to focus on his work, replying over and over, I see that, and I sew this. Finally, the ghostly body was complete, and it began to reach across the church towards its victim by saying in Gaelic again, a long grey paw without blood or flesh or muscles or food, Taylor. Taking a deep breath, the brave tailor put its last stitch into his socks and sprinted for the door, and the ghost pursued, grabbing him with long, bony fingers and a wailing big grey claw that is without food, Taylor. Our hero, he escaped by the skin of his teeth, but not before long he was caught on the behind by the phantom claw as he leapt to freedom. A hole in the priory wall made by the claw is said to remain in the place to this day. And what of the traumatized tailor? The wager was won, but his flesh shook and quivered with terror, and he could cut grass with his haunches as he flew home. That's funny. At Iona Abbey, there was supposedly a tailor's hole where a clothier worked incessantly until things began to trouble him at night. And Bewley Priory and Iona Abbey are peaceful havens today. And thankfully, they haven't had any reported sightings of a Gaelic-speaking ghoul, a terrified tailor, or his spooky socks. So this is, I guess, one of those stories that people like to tell around a campfire.
The old grey paw.
With the gross claw. Like, have you ever heard of manicure?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. And on to the chilling curse of Cardenas. Cardenas Castle is a well-preserved 15th century tower house close to Gatehouse of Fleet in Dumfries in Galloway. Today's visitors can take in panoramic views from the top of the 6-story stronghold or marvel at the house's elegant features. But beware. Rumor has it that a curse affects the land in upon which it is built. The grisly tale begins with one odious Laird of Cardenas, who was desperate for an heir. Legend has it, he threatened his wife that unless she produced a son, he would drown her and all of their 9 daughters.
Oh, shit.
That's aggressive. Thankfully, a baby boy was born. To mark the occasion, the laird declared that a grand winter celebration should take place on a frozen loch nearby. Festivities were in full spring when disaster struck. The ice gave way beneath the party. The laird and his guests plunged to a freezing, ironic death. The Cardenas curse had begun. Just one of the laird's daughters escaped. She went to marry one of the notorious, lawless MacCulloch clan. They built the existing castle on the cursed spot in the late 1400s. The MacCullochs were beset by financial hardship and became enraged in a lengthy and bloody feud with the Gordons, another prominent Galloway family. Alexander MacCulloch and his son Godfrey committed numerous murderous acts against the Gordons. The feud came to a head in the late 1600s, when the bankrupt MacCullochs were forced to mortgage Cardenas. It was acquired by none other than the Gordon family. Enraged, Godfrey MacCulloch shot the new owner, John Gordon, in the leg. John died from his wounds, and Godfrey was charged with murder. He was beheaded on Edinburgh's Royal Mile in 1697, one of the last victims of the infamous maiden guillotine. The cursed castle was abandoned. There's only one final supernatural twist to the tale. A legend quoted by Walter Scott makes the far-fetched claim that Godfrey was saved from his fate by a gnome that he had done a favor for many years earlier. Equally as far-fetched is the rumor that Godfrey's headless body ran 100 yards along the Royal Mile after the execution.
Oh my God.
I mean, yeah, like you're really saying something.
He's just trying to be like the chicken that he killed earlier in the day. I have never heard the likes of something like that. That is insane. I would hope that if somebody chops my head off, my body is just going to go limp and it's not going to run around.
Right. I wonder if, I was just thinking this, I wonder if like the Headless Horseman, the movie, the old movie, the very old tale, I wonder if this all came from this original Scottish incident there at the House of Dun.
I feel bad that I don't know that, but it's very likely it could have.
But like you said,
maybe we'll put this one out to our listeners and say, hey, do you guys know if that's where this whole story comes from?
Yeah. Really, though. As you said, I guess, I don't know if this is a bonus or not, but most of their ghosts over there seem to be very old. So, like, they've been kicking around for hundreds and hundreds of years. So, they might not be as, like, well-equipped as our more relevant ghosts. Does that make sense? I don't know, but...
I don't know either. I feel like our newer ghosts could teach them a thing or two, but... I don't know how that all works, Jen. That's why we're ghost hunters. We're trying to figure it out.
But hey, if the last two could have met each other, like you have just the head coming out of the tomb, and then you have like the body without the head that might have ran 100 miles, maybe if they could have connected, made themselves one, then you could have a whole different story.
It would be like a super ghost.
Right.
That's crazy. Oh my God. Okay, well, since we've gone real wacky, I would just like to say that now I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to go to Scotland. I'm intrigued to go check out some of these super old places. And everybody who's gone to Scotland has told me that it's just like being home when you're there. It's like, hey, I know this place. There's this weird familiarity. Oh, yeah, because we live in New Scotland and everything here looks like Scotland.
Right.
So, maybe we'll do a little ocean voyage at some point.
So I'm totally down for it. And Scotland's not far from Ireland. So really, we'll just bang them out, one after the other.
And my heritage comes from Wales, so I got to check that out too.
Well, let's just add that in there then, Kim,
All right, Jen. So if people want to stalk us on social media, where can they stalk us?
We have a very beautiful page on Instagram, Booze and Bourbon.
Yes.
And we also are on Facebook, Booze and Bourbon, the podcast.
Yes.
You can also find us on YouTube. You can also listen to us on any podcast provider. Wow, I can't talk. We are part of the ABV network, so you can listen to us there as well. We also are on TV every Saturday night at 10. So you can also watch us on the Haunted series on Eastlink, Channel 10 and 610.
Yeah, and you can follow that on Instagram as well.
Right.
And also on Facebook. You just need to look for Haunted TV series and you will find us. So guys, again, thank you so much for listening. I don't know why you do, but thank you.
We appreciate it from the bottom of our very bourbon-filled, ghostly heart.
We'll be back for an all-new episode next Friday.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Booze and Bourbon is part of the ABV network. For more information or to advertise on the show, please head over to abvnetwork.com. Thanks for listening, and cheers.
This has been a Steve Akeley production.